All right.
All right, everyone. Hello. Good morning. Welcome to another Saturday morning CafeBTW, a morning coffee podcast. A little late. I will say that usually we're on time, but I'm just joking. We have an awesome guest here, video restoration on TikTok and all things. Richard, hailing from Nova Scotia, right? How's it going, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for taking the time today. I think that I wanted to do the reason I reached out to you is because obviously you're part of the TikTok community, and we've had tons of the TikTok community on here. But you do something different. You do a lot of repairs, restoration. I wanted to, before we go into a little bit of your past, I want just give like a top line about what you do for the retro community.
Yeah. So it's quite literally as my name is, video game restoration. I try to restore old game consoles or any game console, but like I kind of primarily focus on retro consoles, just to kind of try to keep them alive and keep them going for generations, kind of thing. My original goal was I wanted to start to either relive memories that I had playing those systems or make memories for my kids and other people's kids that like, oh, I used to play this and stuff like that. Like watching my kids play Ocarina of Time for the first time is like, yeah, right. So yeah, that's like my overall goal is to try to save it and try to keep it on budget so people don't have to pay like crazy amounts out of pocket kind of thing. And everybody can continue to enjoy gaming.
That's awesome. And we're going to get a little bit deeper into that, but I'm going to throw you back in time real quick, Richard, because I do this to all my guests. And the first question, before we get into everything, and today, everyone, the topic is the name of our guest, video game restoration, and the importance of that and what you do about going about repairing things. I have a lot of questions, in that realm. And I think it's interesting because it's a topic I've never talked about on the show. And by the way, this is our 62nd or 63rd episode, Richard. So
oh, wow.
I want to announce that I think we're going on our 2-year anniversary. Damn, yeah, it's a lot of episodes. Anyway, tell me, what got you into video games in the first place, Richard? Like, can you tell us a story about a memory that you think kind of bridged everything for you as a gamer? It could be just not as like a retro collector, just like what got you into video games?
Yeah, 100%. As I kind of mentioned earlier, Ocarina of Time, which is like my all-time favorite game, still is. I play it every year. So growing up, I didn't personally have video games. My parents, one, just didn't want us playing them. They'd rather we go outside, and two, we couldn't afford it at the time. However, my best friend who lived across the road had like an NES and N64, or sorry, just an NES at start, and I'd go over there all the time, not even to see him, just to play video games. So we played like Mario and Duck Hunt in his guest bedroom. It was like classic like 80s decor basically. Anyways, eventually he got the N64 with Ocarina of Time, I think F-Zero X. And we sunk hours upon hours and hours into that game, and we never beat it as kids. And then it was just kind of like from there, it just kind of solidified me, I think, as a gamer and continuing to play. And much so where like Ocarina of Time was always at the back of my head. And then when I got older and got my own N64, it's the first game I got. And it's like, I'm playing through it, I'm beating it. And like that was just like the final nail in the coffin, I guess, if you want to call it that. That was like 100%. I can't go back now. So
that's awesome. And I have another question for you, which is whenever I have someone from another part of the world on the show, what was it like buying video games as a kid in Canada? What was your go-to store in Canada? How did you, or I know like what were, I guess in general, how did Canadians buy video games?
So I'm in Nova Scotia now, but I was born and raised in Ontario, which is
Toronto and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. North of Michigan, basically. So Best Buy was my biggest one, I think. Best Buy and Walmart. And I think I primarily bought from Best Buy at the time. Funny talking about it now, how it doesn't even exist anymore. Because Best Buy was in biking distance of my house and Walmart was not. So I probably sunk, I don't know. By the time I was like kind of had my own money to buy, it was in the GameCube era. So I don't know how much money I sunk into video games. Far too much. But yeah, just kind of going to Best Buy, looking at whatever, like every day kind of going in, is like anything new, right? Or like looking for that one game to kind of come out. Which like thinking back, I'm surprised I could even buy the Best Buy because I always thought that was a rental place. But then yeah, and if it wasn't at Best Buy, I'd just convince my mom to take me to Walmart. We picked them up there, kind of thing.
Nice. Well, I guess what's in, and thanks for sharing those stories. And I don't know you mentioned, I guess we met on TikTok, and I think I wanted to bring that up because I always ask the TikTok retro gamers, like, what do you think of TikTok when you discovered TikTok? How did that happen? And how did you get involved in doing all these restoration posts? Because as you know, you might not know, I've been around TikTok since late 2019, early 2020. And back then, dude, it was dancing and singing, but then I was posting retro gaming content, and Matt, the 1980s gamer, was around. There was a few other people, but it was very small. And I feel like we've had an explosion of this retro community members, and you're very niche-y in the fact that you repair things. So I want to hear, how did you find TikTok as an outlet for you with what you do?
Yeah. So if you were to tell me a year ago that I was going to be on TikTok, or a creator on TikTok, let alone like a somewhat respected creator, I would have laughed in your face kind of thing. Like, yeah, okay. Right, I'll floss all the way to the bank, I guess. It wasn't until like my friend, like a lot of people, I guess, were in the same boat when the pandemic hit and everybody was kind of bored and locked up. TikTok kind of spread everywhere and these videos were kind of coming up. And I had friends that were constantly sending me TikToks. And the way it would work, if you didn't have an account, you would watch the TikTok they sent you, but then it would start playing the next one. But it would only go halfway through, and it would just stop like, oh, download the app to see the rest of it. So eventually, after seeing enough of those and like seeing enough of those like half videos, I'm like, well, I want to see what happens next. I ended up downloading it, and I had no intentions of ever posting anything. And then I think the first post I ever made was just like a silly duet with somebody talking about their cat getting out of a lock, and I just kind of made a silly thing where they bought a child lock to make sure their cat wouldn't open the door, and I just kind of did a duet. I'm like, just flick the deadbolt. But after that, I was like, oh, I'll never post again. Then did like an army post, and then when I got into repairing video games, I was like, maybe other people will enjoy this, because I got into it from watching a YouTube video, a gentleman named Odd Tinkering, and I was like, if I can inspire somebody else to do something like this, that would be great. So I started posting it, and people enjoyed it, and then the likes and follows kept on kind of coming in. Which was great, because really that's what pushed me to learn as much. I originally just started, I was like, I'm just going to clean systems and do it for a hobby kind of thing. And now I'm like doing all this crazy soldering. I have like great tools that do like as much diagnostics as I can. So yeah, it's just been a weird, I didn't expect to be where I am today with repairs, like getting like systems sent me from the States and like one from Puerto Rico, for making TikToks. It's just kind of bizarre. So sorry, that's kind of a dance around.
No, that's great. That's great. No, that's what I want to hear, man. I want to hear stories. Yeah. That's what it's all about, man. That was great. What's really cool is like everyone on TikTok is really great and everyone's supportive. And the retro community is very young in the sense that it kind of just appeared in the last year.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I was like, me and Maddie were talking about that, where we were kind of there at the start. Like, I remember 1980s Gamer. I think when I first found his account, he's at 200,000 or 300,000.
I think when he came on the podcast here, he came on in 2020. He was at like 140,000 or something at the time he came on this show. Yeah.
Yeah. So still definitely early. And then we like, it's weird because we were talking about it as well. Like, the community's really grown, where it used to be we knew every single retro gamer that was on TikTok kind of thing. And every day I'm just seeing all these brand new accounts pop up. Like, I've never seen this guy before kind of thing, right? It's just, it's interesting kind of to be near the start of the retro gaming boom, I guess, and kind of seeing it grow from there.
What was interesting, though, is that I didn't discover you till later. And I was around for a long time, and I don't know how I never saw you, or how we never connected. It's interesting.
I think that's because, I get that quite a bit. We're like, how have I not found you? Like, I've been in like retro TikTok for a while. And like, there is that divide where I'm technically not really posting about retro gaming. I'm posting about repairs. So,
ooh, that makes sense. Like, so you're falling into like a different category, maybe?
Yeah. So like, to the mighty algorithm kind of thing.
Huh.
If you weren't showing any interest in any kind of repair or cleaning videos prior to that, it would probably most likely hide my videos. My assumption would be like, it wouldn't kind of show them. Just like, no, they're not going to be interested in that, because I'm not actually gaming it or anything. I'm just kind of building it. So
that's great. Well, I'm glad we finally found each other. What was funny, and I always tell people that don't know, what happened for me was I started doing the podcast, And I was like, I want to do highlights of my podcast, but I noticed they were like, no one gave a crap, no one knew who I was. So then I just did a video about my Sega Saturn, and then all I did was turn it on and say, this is my Sega Saturn, and these are my Sega Saturn games, and that went viral. And I'm like, what? And that all clicked for me and kind of like made me realize, oh, wait, maybe people really like seeing my retro stuff. And, so I come from Twitter, really. That's like my jam. I was a part of the Twitter retro community, and I still am very much a part of that community. And TikTok has been this like amazing extension to my retro license, and it only because I accidentally discovered that people like those type of videos because of my Sega Saturn. And it's just a fun way to. And by the way, Mad in chat said, "Woo, TikTok crew! Rich does awesome work. Good guy to boot." And they also said that Toys R Us was a huge one to go to as a kid, and that was kind of my connection. But
really, I don't think I've ever bought a game from Toys R Us, to be honest with you.
Dude, growing up in the 80s, 90s in New Jersey, like going to Toys R Us and buying video games there, that was life. That was like, that was how it was. That was everything. They had these. Yeah. Did you ever hear about the ticket systems?
No.
I talked to.
I don't know. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'll show you this while you're talking.
Alrighty. I was going to say, like, Toys R Us, anytime we went, it was literally 4 toys. And I don't even remember seeing video games until I was an adult and took my own kids there. And I was like, oh, they have a gaming section? No way. So I don't know if that's like a Canadian-American difference or if I was just oblivious to it.
Yeah, so do you see this? Like, there's tickets. Like, you would walk up to these walls of the game systems, and it would be these flipped up, like you would flip through them. And you would be like, let me see if I can find a better picture, too. And, like, then you would take the ticket. You would literally have it. Oh, here, this is a good look at them. Let me show you. You see it in the back here. I don't know what this is like. Someone's using it as like a backdrop, but you could see the tickets and they have the prices and the little flaps where you pull the flap up. You look at it. Oh, okay, cool. That was life, man. That was life.
Oh, okay. Nice.
That's how, like, I guess in America, like, we bought video games. And also, we did have Walmarts of the world and whatever, but this was like a big deal, was going to Toys R Us and picking these tickets. And I've talked about it on the show before. And here's a good look at one of the tickets. So you've never seen this stuff, huh? Look, they sell this on eBay for
it might have been because
for $500 you can get this ticket on eBay. Look at that. That's a pre-sell ticket for Nintendo 64 for $400 on eBay. Damn.
See, the thing is too, I guess when I started buying games, it probably would have been like the early 2000s. So like my N64 games and all that stuff, that I was getting them like used and off other people kind of thing. So maybe that's why I never experienced that, because I don't remember seeing anything like that for like GameCube, Xbox, and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I don't want to get lost on, but I think it was important for you to see that. But let's talk about, what do you do? Like, like, you said you watched a video, but like, are you having people literally reach out to you and say, hey, can you fix this? Can you fix that? Can you tell me a little bit about this restoration, like what your day-to-day is like with this?
Yeah, totally. So this is like, I started the little business as like a side business, kind of a hobby, just to kind of get my mind off my regular job and just kind of like life in general. And just like keep my hands busy, keep tinkering, and just kind of, I like puzzles, and I found like a broken console is exactly like a puzzle, right? You just gotta like kind of just play with it for a bit and kind of solve that puzzle, put it back together, and then you have like, there's no satisfaction like having a broken system where like, you hit the power button, nothing happens, and then you play with it for 2 hours, you hit the button, all of a sudden it works brand new. So I watched that YouTube video from Odd Tinkering, and he restored an original Game Boy Advance, like the Glacier Blue one, and that's the same kind that I had when I was growing up, and I was like, that would be so cool, I'd love to do that. And then eventually I kind of like, I was always thinking about it, I was watching a lot of his videos, and
is this him, by the way? Am I on the right? Is this?
Yeah, that's the guy. That's the exact video. Yep.
By the way, I've seen his videos and never knew that was his name, but I would see these randomly on YouTube.
Yeah, there's a few imitators now too. But yeah, he did. It was this one. He retrobrates it back to its original color, and it looks brand new. And I was like, I have one of those somewhere.
That's really interesting. That's like real restoration. Yeah. That's like,
Yeah,
how they
this
restore
guy's
tables. Now you're restoring Game
yeah.
Boy Advances.
Well, this guy like restores everything, but he does quite a few video games. And I was just like, when I was like, I'm more interested in him doing video game stuff. I was like, maybe I could be that guy, right? And just do my own video game stuff.
That's
And
amazing.
here we are. Yeah.
What kind of person does it take to be into this type of restoration? Because for me, I'm not so much of an attention to detail guy when like I'm not good with my hands. Like I'm not a handy person. I'm more of a tech person. I'm really good with computers and like digital stuff. But man, I like wood shop in high school. I couldn't build a napkin holder to save my life. You know, like so.
Yeah.
What kind of person does it take to do this type of stuff?
That's a good question. I never really thought.
Are
of
you
it.
in like honestly, like do you find yourself like, because I think I'm fascinated by a guy that does a video where he's using a cotton swab and cleaning, like he loves that. What is it about people that love watching people clean, restore things? There's something about that, right?
Well, there's that satisfaction kind of like factor to it, right? Like, and like I kind of speaking to myself when I was rewatching videos to find out what was working and what wasn't working. The ones that I found was working well, where I'd show it originally, like this is how it originally looked, this is how it originally worked, and then show the very end result where like this is what it is now, kind of thing. And it has that progression of a story as well as that satisfaction, like, oh, look how clean that looks, kind of thing, right? Like there's a whole clean side of TikTok, like cleaning side of TikTok. I think it's called cleaning talk, where people just literally watch people
cleaning talk.
Like, yeah, it's like this is how I clean my toilet, and like no word of a lie, and they go like viral. They're just billions of or millions of views and likes.
Do you think that like I get that? I get why cleaning talk is popular because those are everyday things that people need to do to keep like you got to clean your toilet. Mm-hmm. That's an everyday thing. So if you see a video on how to do it better and faster, that's going to go viral in my eyes, right? So
100%.
So there are literally people that show you like, tips to cleaning pretty much.
Yep. And just like people are like, oh.
So are you into cleaning talk? Is that a thing for you? Do you love?
Kinda.
Okay. All right, that makes sense.
You might see those videos where like somebody has soap scale or rust in their bathtub, and then they just do like it's almost like an infomercial where they just do one wipe, and all of a sudden that wipe is like crystal clear and like it just restores it back to its original color. You're like, oh yeah, that's nice, right? It's like that hit the spot kind of thing.
Interesting. All right, so.
Like,
I find, one part I want to talk about when you're restoring, and I think one of the most disgusting parts of old things is dust. Mm-hmm. What is it about dust in video games? I feel like they go hand in hand because a lot of people have consoles literally that are sitting on their shelves. They don't realize how much dust is inside those things. How much do you come across those moments where someone sends you something and there's just a ton of dust?
It's quite common. Almost every console I open up is going to have some sort of dust. There's those rare ones where it's like immaculate inside. You open it up and it's just like it's in a time capsule. Basically, it's pristine. But it's just like any other object, I guess. Right? Dust is all around us. So if you leave anything on the shelf more than a day, it's going to get dusty. And although we can clean everything we see like surfaces, but on the inside we don't realize air circulating everywhere, kind of thing. Especially when you get heat involved. And that's just blowing in there, kind of thing. Like the video there, like power switches. That's like the number one dust builder, just because it's a constantly moving. So any surface dust kind of gets like built in and like grinded in there. But yeah, like it's crazy what you can find inside some consoles. I worked on a Super Nintendo and I found a light bright crystal in there, which was like the best thing because it was like a slap across the face of nostalgia. It's just like it just flashed me back and like finally I was like, holy smokes, I remember these things. But yeah, there's a lot of weird, bizarre things that come out of there. But for the most part, though, I haven't taken one up yet where I got like dust thrown into my face, so I'll count my blessings.
You should do a video where you're like opening up like a Game Boy Advance or something, and then you end up like in the desert with like major winds.
Yeah.
Like
what happened?
Like that's how much dust was in that thing.
Yeah,
I feel like isn't dust technically like skin? Isn't that what dust? It's from us, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? I'm sorry. I don't want to go into a whole episode about dust, but we haven't talked about dust yet. So, what's funny though is that dust is a part of a lot of like, you're always combating dust. A good example is with the NES cartridge blowing into it. Like as a kid, and I skew a little older than you. Because it was funny. Mad said they're from Canada, and they said the Toys R Us system was around. It's just that you are really young. So maybe it was
Yeah.
before your time. Also, I want to read some chat. Genzo said, it's the power of washing satisfaction when you visually see the dirt disappear.
Hmm.
And then Mad says, wait till you find bugs amongst the dust. Ugh.
Yeah, I found a couple. So like, luckily, I'm blessed to live in an area where we don't really have roaches as a problem. But I have yet to been sent a console that's infested. But I've heard horror
Ooh,
stories. So.
No Fear says, you want to come over and power wash my deck? Also, good question from Genzo for you. What about leaked alkaline batteries? Have you run into that?
Yeah, all the time.
Is that dangerous? Like, what does that mean?
So like just like battery corrosion, like you see it all the time, kind of thing. Where if you leave batteries in a system for too long, they're going to eventually kind of explode and just leak out their inners, and that's where you get that green kind of crusty corrosion all over things.
You know where I think that I've noticed it happens the most is in controller batteries for some reason, or
yeah,
it happens a lot.
Like, yeah, what happens is that you put the batteries in, you forget about it, you put it on a shelf, and eventually just all batteries go bad, right? So it's only a matter of time. So that's why I always try to recommend to people too, if they're ever have like a system. I'm like, whenever like if you're done playing a game and you're like, oh, I'm going to start a new one tomorrow, take the batteries out anyways, because life happens, and it might be 3 weeks before you get back to it. It might be 2 years before you get back to it, right? You don't want to leave batteries in that.
So the batteries cause that corrosion. So if you have like a handheld that uses batteries, you should keep the batteries out of there when you're not using it, right?
Yeah.
But we don't really have to worry too much about that anymore because like the Switch doesn't have batteries that you change, but controllers still technically do.
Yeah, well, we had like the Lion batteries now and like the lithium batteries and all that good stuff. Like they're much more durable. I shouldn't say they're durable, but they don't necessarily like leak and explode kind of thing, right? It's just that old cell battery that really caused the problems.
Interesting. I'm like fascinated by this. This is really interesting. No Fear says, this is why I use lithium double A's or rechargeables. I use rechargeables for my Xbox controller, and they've been working great for the last like year. You know, actually, I had the Xbox One, and then the batteries still work for the new Xbox Series X controller. So I'm still using the same rechargeable batteries I've been using for the last 2 years, and they're working great.
Yeah, modern. Like I was playing my Game Boy the other day. I customized it, put like an LCD screen into it, and I had like new rechargeable batteries. And I remember when I was a kid going through batteries, just like every 2 hours, you're just swapping them out. But like modern batteries, I just had the same like 2 AA batteries for probably about 3 days of like on and off gaming before like the red light even came on, kind of thing. I'm like, oh, now I'll swap them out, I guess, right? So it's interesting to see like the change in technology when it comes to that.
And I pulled up this really good article that I found. And let me give credit to the I don't know, some random site called makeuseofit.com. They said, what is video game preservation and why is it important? And believe it or not, you know, looking at the research in this, there's not a lot of, like, there are a ton of YouTube videos, but there's not a lot on it, technically. There's not a ton. I think there's not enough focus on video game preservation. So let's go through a few items besides repairing, Richard, which is what you do. There's other types of ways to preserve video games, right? And I wanted to talk through this with you. What do you think of game emulation as a type of, and that's an interesting topic. How about game emulation as a type and form of preservation? Saying there might be Earthbound, which is $350 loose game that you can't afford, but you can still emulate it. So what is your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, it's definitely a sensitive topic or sensitive topic for some people. I 100% think that's like kind of the way that the future's heading, kind of thing. Like just look at Nintendo with their N64 release recently, as well as the NES and Super NES Online. It's definitely helps preserve it, as well as, you know, exactly as you said, Earthbound being over like $350-400 for a loose copy. Like Little Samson, I think, is like $1,000.
Oh, that game is like just going through the roof these days, you know?
Exactly, right? So if you want to be a purist like that, then it's either you're going to have to dish out $1,000 or just never play it in your life, kind of thing. So emulation is definitely the way that this is getting, like the way the future is kind of working or heading towards. And even on like Nintendo's NES online store, some of the games they have aren't even direct copies from their systems. They're ones that they found emulated like online and used because they're a little cleaner, a little better. So definitely it's the way to preserve it, and it's to get new generations involved in it too. Like having the N64 and the Super NES on the Switch for like the new generation, that's great. Like try giving an N64 to a 10-year-old and see what happens, kind of thing,
Sure.
I guess, right? Like so definitely having that handheld console or handheld console in the back of a car kind of thing, playing Super Mario Kart 64, Super Smash Bros. 64, Ocarina of Time, all that stuff. It will definitely keep it current and keep it going through the generations kind of thing. Because everything nowadays is moving digital. Like the new PS5, right? There's an option where you don't even have a disc drive on it kind of thing, right? You just download all your games.
Yeah, and I want to talk about, so Richard, do not play emulators and I'm talking about illegal emulators. And I'm going to say they're illegal. A RetroPie is not a legal thing. Any emulator technically is just ripping copyright infringement. And I still do not really... Listen, I'm not against people doing it. I personally play my retro games in their original form, but when a Nintendo, a Sega releases their actual games emulated, because technically on the Switch, all these N64 games are coming out. They're pretty much emulated. They're digital.
Yeah,
that's all it is, but it's being done by the creators, right? So they're putting a little bit, because some of those emulated RetroPie games are a little off, There's some weird things about those games. But No Fear asked opinions on the N64 emulator on the Switch. I think, like you said, that's preservation to me. The fact that they're saying, oh, we're going to release our N64 games and the Genesis games on the Switch so that new generations can play them. There's no way your 4-year-old's going to grow up and say, I want a Genesis.
Yeah, exactly.
We like collecting that stuff, but my kid wouldn't want to probably buy like an old retro console, but would they play it on a new digital console? Hell yeah, they would. Why not?
Yeah, 100%. Sega is like the perfect example of that, right? Like Nintendo's very good at keeping their brand alive. Like Ocarina of Time has been released, I don't know how many times now on different systems, and it's probably going to be on the Switch. Well, I guess it technically is on the Switch right now. But like Sega obviously is a dead company around now, right? So like there's nothing to really preserve it unless someone was able to get the rights for it and re-release the game. Like Sonic was able to make the jump, but
I wouldn't say they're a dead company. They just stopped making hardware. They
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because Sega is still producing. They own studios. They're making games. And dude,
oh really? Okay.
Don't forget. Let me give you a good perspective from a guy that's in marketing, Richard. Sonic the Hedgehog is one of the 3 most recognizable figures as a mascot IP representation in the world. What does that mean, Richard? That means to use Sonic's likeness, that is very costly. So Sega makes money hand over fist just on the Sonic IP alone. So put that in perspective. Now, Nintendo has Mario and they make hardware still, but Sega, after the Dreamcast, they put their hands up and said, we're not going to compete with Sony. We're not going to compete with Nintendo. We are going to start just making games. And that's why you ended up seeing Sonic on a Nintendo system. That's how that all happened, because Sega's like, screw it. We're just going to make software. And, today, Sega is in a great position. Did you know that the Sonic movie was also kind of produced by the Sega themselves? Even though there was a whole uproar about the design of Sonic, which was kind of like a misstep, but they fixed that. So yeah, man, just wanted to give you perspective that Sega is better than ever right now in their own right.
I never would have realized. Yeah, that makes perfect sense though. Yeah.
But will they ever go back and compete in the hardware market? Absolutely not. They're never going to go back. So did they lose that? Yeah, they lost that.
Yeah, and honestly, any console to come out right now, like trying to compete against like the big 3, I guess. It'd be tough. Like even the Stream Deck, like you hear mixed reviews about that kind of thing. Like I haven't seen it really like take off just yet, but yeah, anything against those big 3 is going to really have to be something else to really kind of get above it.
Yeah, but it's a really, like Genzo said in chat, massive gray area. It's such a gray area, emulators, but I think it's a good way. I think it could be a bad preservation or it could be a good preservation. So I think it's preserving games. I think we can agree that it is, but there's definitely some bad apples of preservation out there. Yeah. No Fear said that I tried a few games and their emulation is rough, so he's saying that I think the Nintendo emulation isn't that great. So maybe that's a good point too. Maybe the game companies don't emulate their original games as well as playing it on like a Nintendo 64.
I'd say that there's nothing like the original. But sometimes you have to take what you get, I guess. But.
Here's what he says. No Fear says, the N64 emulation on the Switch he was talking about. Okay. Genzo says there's the preservation of the code, which is good. Yeah, absolutely. That is preservation too. Now, going down this really cool article, Richard, how about migrating and porting? That is preservation? Now, porting meaning, say, a game existed on one console and they're porting it to another console. What do you think of that?
I'd say it definitely still falls under that preservation, but it also kind of like allows the game to be accessed by a bigger audience, right? There's like, as I'm sure you know, there's those people that only play Nintendo, those people that only play Sony, those people that only play Microsoft, right? So porting things over just widens the spectrum of that game. To be enjoyed by all kind of thing, right? So say for example, if people absolutely hated Nintendo, they would have never, I guess, really played a Mario game. However, if Nintendo ported it one day over to Xbox, we'll say, or Microsoft, then that would give them the chance to kind of play it and kind of, I guess, widen the enjoyment of that one game and their brand, I guess, as well. So yeah, that'd be my take on it, I guess. But it's probably preservation, because again, same thing with kids. Like say if you have a kid that has that one system, that's all they can afford, kind of thing, and all of a sudden a game from a different console gets ported over to it. Now they can play it, kind of thing, right? So.
That's true. Now, one of the first instances of starting to think about what the Switch is doing today with the 64 is the Wii Virtual Console, which people got to remember was really ahead of its time in releasing games from the publisher or the hardware creator actually emulating their games on their system, and the Virtual Console was pretty darn good. I don't know if you ever played the Wii Virtual Console.
A little bit, not a lot. Like I think I had the original Super Mario Bros. And like Mario Kart 64 on there, but I didn't really download too much into it.
Yeah, that was the first iteration of being able to, I started on the Wii Virtual Console. I was playing some old games, and it was really cool. And I thought the emulation was good on the Wii. Matt says, I'm always going to be original hardware, but in the emulation is good with no lag, then it can work okay. I will say this, though. I'm stoked to see the GTA trilogy on the Switch. Yeah, that is something I was going to get into. That whole GTA, let's see if I can find that. The trilogy remastered is going to be awesome. And I don't think, has the Switch ever had those games? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
That's going to be cool.
Like, it's only been like last maybe 5-10 years that they've really gotten into like kind of rated R RPG games.
So
because it used to be like very family friendly as far as I remember, and then all of a sudden I think it started with like Assassin's Creeds and stuff like that. And now we're kind of seeing like GTAs here. So
what I plan to do is get it on the Switch, because I'd love to play like on the go really nicely GTA. You know, I could be on a plane playing, but I'm gonna literally and this is about this is really about restoration, because look what they're doing. They're keeping the graphics kind of, they're being true to the graphics, but they're definitely just giving it a nice polish.
Yeah,
you know,
smooth things out kind of thing.
They're not remaking anything. They're just doing a nice reimagining and updating the graphics, which is freaking cool. And I'm gonna play this from start to finish, and I'm excited. Vice City's like one of my favorites, without a doubt.
Oh, I love Vice City.
Vice City's the best. It was such a good one.
It's funny when a song comes on from the soundtrack, like I'll be driving with my dad or something like that. I'm like, oh yeah, this takes me back. And there's him looking at me like, it's like, what do you mean this takes you back? This is from '83, right? So. Now,
I do want to give some honorable mention to Nico Bellic, who in GTA 4 is one of my favorite GTA protagonists.
Definitely.
And I don't think he gets enough credit. Nico Bellic. Poor Nico, you know? Poor Nico. Anyway, let me go down this article. There's a couple of more really fascinating points here. Well, I guess the big question is, why is it important? You know, why is it important for video games? I mean, the answer is pretty simple. I mean, I know the answer, but Richard, what's your thought on that.
So the question being like, why is it important to restore these?
Hmm.
Okay. I guess my opinion would be that one, it's history. It's a part of history now, and like in that overall goal of keeping history alive, kind of thing. Not so much like a Michelangelo kind of like let's restore this painting, but the same kind of concept, right? And just as I kind of mentioned at the beginning, to continue having fun with it and having like generations to have fun with it, kind of thing, and to really remember your roots, because like even showing the kids like they're playing Roblox and Fortnite and all that stuff, and showing them like the original Zelda, they're like, once you die, you die. That's it. You go back to the start of the game, right? And, like, there's no save files and stuff like that.
Oh
So
yeah.
mind-boggling to them. Like this is where it started, kind of thing, right? So you need to have that good foundation to continue to build up.
I like that. Okay. I'm gonna ask you a couple more questions here based on this article.
Mm-hmm.
I th- I guess we talked about the good and the bad of preservation, right? We kind of touched on that. It matters. I mean, it does matter, but I mean, Richard, what do you think of the fact that we're even talking about this? Like, for me, I grew up in the 80s, right? If you would have told my younger self in the 80s that we got to preserve video games, I would have looked at you with three heads like, what do you mean? Growing up as a kid when video games weren't collected, technically they were bought to play. It was a different world, and I think that all that's telling me is that the video game existence of video games are getting, that's how old they are now. I mean,
Yeah.
the true like history where you can like go back and think when it all started, like I guess you could say the late 70s was where it really hit a stride, because it was like you had asteroids in the arcades and stuff, and Pong was showing up, and
Yeah.
I guess I would have never thought that preservation would have mattered. So I'm just thinking from a kid perspective from the 80s, but it does matter. It matters a lot for a lot of things. And did you ever hear of the Video Game History Foundation, Richard?
No, I haven't.
So they're one of the few organizations, nonprofit, that actually is working on preservation for video games in all types of facets. So from a library of magazines, because keeping a library of all the magazines, that's preservation for video games, right? Besides all the video game side of it, we got to remember there's all the editorial journalism that has supported video games. Do you think that's important preservation? Absolutely. I mean, I think so.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Now we talk
like not like it's lost forever, right? It's gone. Like there's if say in 100 years we need it for whatever reason, right? There's some sort of record of it now.
Yeah, and then Genzo mentioned source code preservation, and the Video Game History Foundation works on preservation of such things as code for video game, which is really cool. Public education is important for preservation, right? Because that's awareness. You're giving awareness to the fact that Nintendo released the N64 and the Switch is giving awareness to a newer generation of children that never had access to the N64. And now they're playing it, like you said. So that's public education. Media asset archives. So and media assets could be like any type of posters or digital content that was associated with the game. Could be trailers. These are all things we didn't talk about beyond just cleaning and keeping these things together. What do you think of all these? These are very important. Archival collections.
Well, just like it's like anything. Like you talk to somebody about I guess if you were to watch, what's that show called? Not Pawn Stars, but the one where they just drive across the country looking for antiques. Like the stories that they have for like an oil sign, and like this is a 1913 can of Texaco like oil, right? And then there's this huge history behind it. Like who would have thought that keeping the history of oil products alive is a big thing? But it goes with anything. Like you've got to have some sort of footprint, some sort of crumb trail to kind of follow back to see where it started. And eventually it might become relevant again one day. But in my opinion, like any kind of history is important and worth saving. Whether it's like the smallest of things, the biggest of things, right? But because all it's going to do is really help future generations to kind of look back and be able to look back, because it'll almost be like the dark ages of video games if all this stuff just kind of disappeared one day. It's like, we started with Pong with a ball going back and forth. Then there's a whole bunch of stuff here that happened in the 80s. Not too sure we lost it. And then the 90s, like, you know what I mean? So kind of keep that that trend going, I guess.
Yeah, no, and I think the last and most important is advocacy, and that's
Hmm.
what we're doing on TikTok. Richard, when you're posting on TikTok, you're spreading awareness of the existence of like restoring, games, and even my clips of like an old commercial is bringing awareness to the industry that's from the past. So I'm, in a sense,
Definitely.
like I'm a more like you repair games, and I personally feel like I'm some sort of documentarian because I'm sharing clips from video games past and news clippings, like really important stuff that like brings back like when we talked about it in the history of like media and
Yeah,
editorial.
definitely. I think some of your videos too, like kind of struck a chord with me.
Oh, thank
Especially
you.
the ones where, what's that, sir?
I said thank you.
Uh,
It struck a
especially the ones
chord.
that plenty of chords. Anyways, um, the ones where like, especially at the height of like Nintendo or Sega, when there was all these debates on are video games making our kids violent? Are these too violent for our kids? And it was in like the Supreme Court and stuff like that. Like that was a huge section of history because like that carried on for years, and you still kind of see it where like video games make you violent. Like school shootings wouldn't happen if we didn't have video games. Like stuff, terrible things like that, but really there's no actual physical evidence that ever proves that. It's just kind of like parents kind of, I guess, overreacting. But like if we lost all that, it would just be a repeating cycle kind of thing, right, where like video games are violent, then there's no proof behind it, and then just right back to the beginning. So to be able to look back at the early 90s there and see that this went through the court systems and they found that like no, it's not actually true, and that there's been tons and tons of studies afterwards, right? That's huge historical facts that we need to kind of keep and hold on to so we don't repeat our past, I guess.
Yeah, no, that wow. Yeah, no, totally. Wow, I didn't think this has turned out to be a very intensive topic, and I didn't think it would be, but I guess it really should be because it's about like when you're talking about like saving something, keeping something, it's emotional because you're like talking, that's how like crazy video games has been for me. I'm like gonna
Yeah.
cry. No, I'm just kidding. But
Yeah.
but
Well, video games for everybody, right? It's an escape, right? Like I've used it tons of times in the past. I'm sure almost everybody else has that. You have a rough day, you have a bad day, you're just having a bad week, I guess, right? You can escape to that fantasy world. Like for me, that was Zelda. It's just like I'm just gonna go to Hyrule for a little bit, just go run around on Epona, right? Like, shoot some pows with my bow. It'll be great. So
yeah, and what I guess one other side of everything that we didn't touch on too much was remakes, and this isn't like an upgrade. This is a remake, and I think
oh yeah,
I think that kind of preserves the game in a sense. They're like kind of
yeah.
bringing back to it.
Yeah, I
Um,
was actually talking the other day. Like my buddy was looking for the original Pokemon games on Game Boy Color, and when I broke the news to him that they're like super expensive, it's like $60 to $80 to like sometimes they're even like $150 per game. He's kind of like shied out of it, but I was like, there is reproduction cards that you still get the authentic feeling of putting a game in your Game Boy, turning it on, all that stuff. It's just a repro, and they cost like $20, right? So again, making that available for more people to enjoy, kind of thing, right?
yeah, no, totally. I like that. I used to be like kind of video game remakes is different from like movie remakes into
Mm-hmm.
to my eyes. Like sometimes I don't feel great about like movie remakes, but I'm okay with like video game remakes. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really an important part too. So what is your thoughts of people doing and this is part of preservation in a sense, people are making new NES games or they're making games for old platforms. They're making new
Yeah.
games. What do you think about that? That's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, so I worked at a record store. It's like a record store and then half pop culture on the other side and a lot of video games. And then we used to get in like the new Super Nintendo games and stuff like that. Basically like reimagination or reimaginings of it would be like Link to the Past, however set in Sonic, or it'd be Sonic going through Link to the Past map kind of thing, right? Silly things like that, but definitely again kind of touching on what your chat was saying there, like keeping that kind of coding alive, because to do that, you need to go back to the code that was used at the time, right? So it's funny enough, myself and a few other TikTokers there, Matt Newey, Lost in the 80s, 90s, and Pete and JJ's Retro Gaming, we're actually looking at making our own NES game. Just something
No
fun to kind of
way.
like play.
That's great.
But looking into it, we're like, oh yeah, we'll just do a little bit of coding kind of thing, learn a little bit. Like Python's pretty simple, I guess. Then we'll go back. But no, you have to learn the coding that they used on the NES, and now you also have to know what that NES is capable of and how the NES itself runs the games in order to code it properly. So if it weren't for people remaking those games, that type of coding would completely be lost because
Ooh,
it's
good point.
nowadays it's kind of outdated, right, and irrelevant. But still, without it, without making these games, it would be gone. There'd be no reason for it. So
That's a really great point. I didn't really think about that. They have to try to like code it. They have to make it exactly like you made it for the NES in 1985, right?
yeah, exactly.
That's
I
really
was thinking, it's like,
interesting.
oh, I'm going to learn Python and I'll just make a game. They're like, nope, it's some crazy. It's not even like C plus or C hashtag C or whatever it is. It's just or pounds or whatever you want to call it. It's just C12U or something crazy like that. Something I've never heard of before, but it was like only on the NES.
Do you know what the evolution of the cartridge was? It's really simple. The evolution of the cartridge is the SD card. That is a cartridge now.
Oh,
That is literally
yeah.
because, like, think about Nintendo sells you, physical games that are really just a little SD card.
It's just a memory card, yeah.
But what I
Throw it on.
what I don't think people think about is like those are like that's a cartridge. That's like the future. That's like how cartridges evolve. They turn in these little cards.
Yeah, I never even thought of that. It's hilarious too. Because like even if you look at emulation, when you have like 100 games on a single SD card, that's exactly it. You're just putting that little tiny SD cartridge in there, and there you go. Now you're running all your games.
Yeah, and that's like the cartridge today. And there's nothing fancy about it. You don't blow into it or anything.
Yeah. They rarely need to be cleaned, so this is ridiculous.
Running.
Get out of a job in 20 years.
Let me just recap some chat here. Genzo said, and some companies are making it extremely difficult to repair old things. I guess that's a good point.
They are.
Mad said they need to redo Mutant League Hockey. That would be a good remake. Genzo says World of Warcraft was modified so much now in the current iteration that Blizzard effectively lost the original code, thus the issue that came up with the vanilla release. Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's I never really thought about the code preservation and how important that is.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. So what's the future hold for a guy like Richard that repairs Game Gears every day? What's your future, man? Tell us where do you see yourself growing in the TikTok space? Like is there any, or you just want to keep your everyday, stuff? Like where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years?
Probably repairing Game Gears for the amount I get them.
That's
it's funny.
awesome.
Before I even started this, I had never even heard of a Game Gear until I was handed one. They're like, "Can you fix that?" I'm like, yeah, sure. And now it's like I have like literally 8 in my workstation here, and 3 more in the mail.
That's amazing. I didn't realize that. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's crazy. You asked that question earlier, but yeah, people are sending me things now. It's kind of, I never really expect to have a big business. But where I'm going to be in the future, so. It's a good question. So I'd like to do more repairs, and I'd like to dedicate more time to repairs. However, like at current, I have like 3 jobs, and then the kids and everything like that. So making time for like this has proven to be difficult, especially now that I'm getting like so many systems in, and it's just like a backlog, and it's kind of weird. I guess in the future, I'd hope to have a better sense of balance, because right now, like my pastime / decompression treatment, I guess, has now almost turned into a stressor. I'm like, oh, I've got like 13 orders behind this one, so I'm trying to get to it. So if I could figure out my life that way, that'd be great. But I'd like to keep continuing doing consoles, and if possible, if I could make it a career, that'd be great, just to kind of replace the other ones, just kind of more stress free than the other ones. But yeah, so I don't know. TikTok wise, I'm happy the way TikTok's going. I'm not reaching. I'm not trying to like become like the next Bella Porsche, or that's how you pronounce it, or anything like that, right? But if people are enjoying it, that's great. And I think I've benefited more from TikTok than anything, because as I mentioned earlier, if it wasn't for TikTok, I probably would still just be cleaning systems for fun. And right now, like I've had so many people reach out, it's like, do you think you could fix this? And it's like kind of forced me to go out of my comfort zone and to learn how to fix them. And then people coming into my live streams are like, oh, how come you're doing it this way? Try it this way instead. Or, oh, I can't fix this part. And somebody in the live chat's like, oh, no, try doing this super simple. So I've learned so much from the TikTok community. And then I try to like teach as much as I can as well. So if I can help save more consoles, like
That's great.
from making TikToks, that's great. Because yeah, that was my overall goal, is to try to teach people. So like when somebody makes a video that duets me, or they just comment, they're like, "Hey, because of this, I was able to fix my childhood Game Boy or my childhood NES." I'm like, "Yes, did it again!" Right? So yeah, so I guess that's in a long answer or a short answer from that long answer. Just continue on this path, maybe a little more organization, and help more people save their own systems, and be here if they can't figure it out.
I love it, man. No, it's great. I love your content. Again, we just put your stuff in chat. Check out his TikTok, his Instagram, his Linktree. Richard's doing awesome stuff at Video Game Restoration. That's a great handle. That pretty much covers it. And we're kind of at the end of the show, Richard. I feel like this was like a really great hour of a good topic that I think needs to be talked about a little bit more. So out of the 62 episodes, we've never talked about restoration. We've never talked about dust. We never talked about, we might have talked about remakes and stuff like that, but
yeah, glad we got dust in there. That's a hard one to bring in.
It's a tough one to bring in. I'm glad we talked about dust though. And I think a lot of people learned a lot today. And yeah, man, like I can't thank you enough for making the time and coming on. I hope you had fun.
Of course, yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It was a great time. It's great to kind of discuss it too, from your perspective, especially too. Like, it's kind of like I kind of almost stumbled into the retro community, or more so, I was like graciously accepted by the retro community. I'm not that old, I'm not that young either, but a lot of these retro games are like before my time. So it's great to kind of like see and be exposed. I think it was actually Maddie that really introduced me into a lot of things I've never seen before. We kind of like rose the TikTok ladder together. But then seeing everybody else, so yeah, it's been a hell of a ride.
Yeah, man, that's great. Yeah, I'm gonna keep on, keep on keeping on the retro community on TikTok, and I have a few more people that are coming on, and I also gonna tease this with you here. We're gonna be putting together a 1 hour, or maybe it might be a little longer, primetime retro show, which will feature multiple retro enthusiasts, creators, people that it could be other people that work in the industry. And we're going to have intensive topic style debating on a show. If you ever saw the sports show Around the Horn, we're going to be doing sort of that, but with retro gamers. And it's a show I'm working on, and we're going to potentially have the first episode in December, and it's going to be an extension to this channel. And it's going to be more of a primetime show, and I'm excited to share that. So that's a show I'm probably going to come back and ask you to participate on, Richard. So
yeah, of course, anytime, I'd gladly come.
Yeah. So I want to thank everyone that stopped by the live. It's good to see some new faces in chat. Genzo, thanks as always for moderating. Remember, you can find me in all things below, Twitter at LoveRetroBTW, right here on Twitch every Saturday, on TikTok at CafeBTW, and then you could check out everything that Richard does in chat right there with his TikTok, his Instagram, his Linktree. Other than that, have a great weekend, everybody, and thanks everyone on VOD who checked out the episode, not live. Not mad at you that you didn't show up, but thanks so much for stopping by. And Richard, we will see you soon, man. I'm sure we'll be talking, and really appreciate it.